Common problem I see in games below 2000 level rated players is that they love to make pawn moves. Consequently, they are behind in development and go on to lose the games. You can win more games by making more piece moves than pawn moves. And this game is a great example of how to convert an advantage in development. Let's have a look. French defense, Mikhail Tal plays knight d2, c5 by Ullman, knight f3. So Tal keeps on developing his pieces. Knight c6, bb5, another piece development. I would not pay attention to the evaluation just yet because the engine could be a little bit weaker. de4, knight e4, bishop d7, and now Tal makes another piece move, which is bishop g5. Now engine probably doesn't prefer it, but it's practically a very sound move. Queen a5 check, again a piece move, knight c3, and then Ullman takes on d4. So Ullman is keep on making pawn moves. Knight d4, and now Ullman plays bishop b4. So he is developing a piece, but as a result of how many pawn moves he has made, this piece move costs him some of his advantage that he initially held, or equality that he held. And what does Tal do? Should he really care about this knight on c3, or should he keep developing more pieces to take advantage of the king which is in the center and the fact that the knight has not been developed? Of course, Tal cares about the kings. He castles. Excellent move. Now, I should attach an exclamation mark to this. Well, here we go. Exclamation mark. Good move. Why? Because black's king is in the center and it's about to collapse should black be greedy. In the game, black was greedy. And black goes on for this pawn. So black's mistakes were that he made too many pawn moves, but more than that was that he got greedy and went for another pawn. And now white has a lead in development. And this is where an important rule comes into play. And that is, when you are ahead in development, chances of a sacrifice working increase. And that's what happens right here. Can you spot the best move for white? Have a moment, pause the video if you like, and resume when you're ready. Hopefully you did pause, and white takes advantage of his development by playing knight f5. Brilliant move, and it has a full logical basis to it, and that is that black's king is in the center, knight is not developed, white is ahead in development. And well, ef5, rook e1 check, bring another piece, bishop e6, and queen d6. Another rule is very important here that allows you to evaluate this position, and that is, when you have more attackers than your opponent has defenders, chances of a successful attack increase. In this case, white has three attackers and black only has one defender. The knight does not count as a defender because bishop is attacking as well. So an defensive power of a pinned piece is illusionary. And what does Tal do here? He manages to reroute his dark square bishop. Can you see how? Take a moment, pause the video if you like, resume when you're ready. Bishop d2. And why is that? I see a weak square on f8. Should I be able to get my bishop to b4 and get queen f8? Chances are I can get an unsupported piece. To make tactics work, target unsupported pieces. Queen c2, bishop b4, a b5, and Tal gets what he wants and even grabs the rook on a8. And now we see a huge problem. We inserted this check so that the king would move to c7, and should black take, white has rook c1, pinning the queen, and that just wins on the spot. I think you might even have mate in 2 with queen d8 and queen d6, but yeah, you get the point. So this is our first example. Now this is our second example. As we see again, white has a lot of lead in development, black's pieces are stuck inside. Consequently, if we apply the same rule again, that when you are ahead in development, chances of a sacrifice working increase. And if you look at this position, we find that knight takes e6 works particularly well. White is up in material, by the way, since black took on e4 on the next move. So white is up a piece and white takes on e6, returning the piece. But the advantage in development speaks for itself. How might you take back since the knight is attacking the queen? If you take with the knight, which is what happened in the game, then we have f5 attacking the knight. Where does the knight go? Knight c5, bishop c5, and the weak king starts to collapse after playing f6. I play f6 so that you're not allowed to castle long. g6, rook d1, ce4, and rook e1. Why? King is in the center, open files must be taken care of, and we see that the sort of sacrifice, which was actually returning the material, did work out. Those kind of moves become possible when you're ahead in development. If you had taken with the pawn here after the sacrifice, I can just simply take bishop c5 and e6 collapses no matter which pawn you take with. Let's say you play queen c6, I think one move could just be bishop f5. And white is doing amazing. You can't play g6, there is knight f6. If you take here, I have queen b7 attacking the rook and the queen at the same time. Worst, best you can try is queen d4 check, the king moves, and that king is gone from the board. Yep. So now hopefully that example was useful as well. Let's look at the third example. This is our third example. Again, we see that white has made quite a few piece moves and very few pawn moves, only one pawn as I can tell. And black is still behind in development. Now, bishop h6, which of course doesn't work, black just takes back. But there need not be a sacrifice. You are allowed to keep developing or conduct an attack on weak squares or pieces. So there is nothing stopping you from attacking anywhere else as well, rather than just the king. And this is what white does. White plays the move e5. There are logical basis to it because black is behind in development. So I can attack c7 and f6 potentially. If this knight can get to b5 or d5, that would be a huge problem for black. So black takes, bishop takes, knight e4. Again, moving the same piece twice, so you are still behind in development. Consequently, white does not care about the bishop pair, rather that goes for the attack. Bishop e5 is played. And now white plays knight f3. Now again you have a problem. Once my rook comes to d1, you'll have pressure on the file and that bishop is attacked. Bishop goes back, you have to. Taking on b2 is not really good since I play rook d1 and you have lots of problems along the file. Let's say I could go knight c5 in the future, I could go bishop c4, queen f4, you name it. Bishop g7. Rook d1, queen c8. Well, how else do you develop the knight? You need to move the bishop and then the knight comes out, else the bishop hangs. Bishop c4, bishop e8, and knight g5. And finally we see the plan in action. Finally a sacrifice does work out. Chances of a sacrifice increase when you are ahead in development. Pawn takes, knight takes, king g8, and we realize two attackers, only one defender. If we can add another attacker, that would be 3 versus 1 and we would win the game. And white does exactly that. 3 attackers, 1 defender, chances are the game is lost. Now, knight d7, rook d7. The idea was for black to add an attacker into the game to stop queen h7. But white says, no, I will have my attack one way or the other. And bishop f7 just simply wins the game. If you move the king, then queen h4, bishop h6 is just checkmate. And if you take here, then again there are many ways to win the game. I think rook e7 would do a pretty good job. Queen g6 would do a job. The rook e4, rook h4 would do the job. I think that looks the best. Rook e4 just wins on the spot, I believe. And yeah, rook h4 is pretty much unstoppable. 3 attackers, 1 defender, the game is lost. Hopefully you got to learn something from the video. Do let me know in the comments if you would like more examples on this or a similar topic. I try to simplify complicated chess concepts, and the main point I want you to take away from this video is that you need to make more piece moves, try to be ahead in development, and then make your attack work in a way as we saw right here. Do let me know if you have any comments. I'll see you in the next video.